Hi, so this video is a video response to Natalia at Ouroboros. It's her hashtag #WhyMoon, um, where she discussed how her obsession with the moon and trying to understand what her obsession with the moon is. Now, I'm not sure when my, I guess it's an obsession, or yeah, where my obsession with the moon began. I'm not quite sure, but I can tell you a few things that that I can tell you what I discovered it is not. One, I think I purchased one moon phase agenda or planner, maybe two, years ago. Never cracked them open. Um, I have a calendar hanging on my wall. Every year get a new calendar with the moon phases. Never look at it. Um, when I practice magic, if I'm going to cast a spell, I wait until the urge comes to cast that spell where I feel I feel the energy building and I feel that this is the right time to do it. And as a passing interest, I will check to see what the moon phase is and go, okay. Sometimes I hold off. So if I'm trying to bring something into my life, I'll hold off if, it's a waning moon. Unless I feel very strongly to work in that, if I want to bring something into my life, and it's a waning moon, usually it's waning almost to dark. So my time, it's like my internal moon clock is pretty close to the moon phase. So I'll hold off for a couple of days, and it usually is only having to hold off for a couple of days. If it's an urgent matter that needs immediate attention, well, then I just look at the moon phase and rework my spell to match the moon phase. So if I'm coming from a place where I need to bring something in, but the moon is waning, well, then I would pick, okay, I need to do something right away to set this in motion. What do I need to get rid of in order to bring this in? What needs to go to make room for the new to come in? So I would just rework my spell and I would rework my wording and all that. Or for me, it's not so much wording, because a little bit it is, because my whole spell casting method is not really, put it this way, it wouldn't make an interesting television. You know what I mean? It's like most of my spell casting occurs in a notebook. And there may be some herbs, there may be a candle, there may be some incense smoke involved, but for the most part, it's in a notebook. Like I said, not interesting television. Anyway, so then I thought, okay, I'm watching Natalia's video, and it's like, okay, yeah, me too. The agendas, no. Keeping track of my moods and seeing how they match the phases of the moon, no. Keeping track of the phases of the moon, oh no, just as a passing. It's like not, it's something that occurs in passing, and is very passive. Actually, it's not. I'm not actively paying attention to the phases of the moon. It's extremely passive. It's more of a, oh, this happened. This is what's going on right now. This is the current energy that's in play. Let me look at the phase of the moon. It's like, oh, interesting. So how apropos, right? But it's that kind of passing. So no agendas, no calendars. I barely ever keep track of the moon. But what I do have is an app on my phone. And, okay, this is a little... So yeah, I have an animated wallpaper on my phone. And I'm sure you're not surprised what it is. Anyway, so see this thing here? That's my Deluxe Moon app. And this is an Android phone. And I have Deluxe Moon for Android. And what it does is I tap on it. This is a widget. So the widget, oops, sorry, let me go back. So see this? This is what the moon is, right? This is what the moon is right now in real time. Okay, it's a little waxing crescent. And I tap the moon, and it'll give me the details of, I know this is like so bizarre with the, but you know, I've posted pictures on Instagram and my Facebook of what this app looks like, and it's pretty neat, right? It's got different, you know, it's got options of how you could set it up for the way to look. This is the one that you pay for. I don't remember. I had the free deluxe moon for years before I paid for this one, and for the most part I ignore it. Interestingly enough, I look at my phone constantly, and for the most part I ignore it, except when there's something that's going on, or there's something I want to do, or whatever, and then I'll check to see what the moon phase is, and then I'll jump ahead to see when the next full moon is, and the next full moon where I live is December 11th, and it's a full moon in Gemini, so that already gives me an idea of what's happening. But that's as far as my tracking the moon goes. But what is my obsession with the moon? I have to say that on a clear night, when I could see the moon, whatever phase it is, but especially, if it's full and it's reflecting off the lake where I live, or if it's a full moon and it's a clear sky and it's illuminating the night, I'm filled with awe. Whenever I see a big full moon, and we see, like, our visibility where we live is usually the day before the full moon, so it's still waxing. It's not full yet. It's when we actually visually see it in the sky, literally like a big pizza pie. And it never ceases to draw me outside, to draw me to the window, to fill me with awe. And I live in the 21st century. I know that it's a satellite, it's a rock that's trapped in Earth's orbit, that moves the tides of the ocean and the oceans and stuff like that. I know that it's not made of green cheese and there's no man on the moon, well, and all that stuff, right? And yet, when I see it in the sky, it arouses in me something primal. It speaks to the part of me that is primal, the part of me that is eternal, the part of me that are bits and pieces of DNA and matter that have lived many lives before this one. It speaks to me. It speaks to the spirit and the DNA, to every cell in my body. It speaks to all those who came before me, my ancestors, and all the women who came before me that I am descendant of, who looked up to the heavens and saw the moon and worshipped it. It speaks to that part of me. It speaks to that part of me that remembers when the light of the moon permitted people to arrive somewhere safely because there were no street lights. It speaks to that part of me that is connected to all the women who came before me, who marked time with the phases of the moon, that marked their menstrual cycles with the phases of the moon, that planned their pregnancies by the phases of the moon, that planned what their crops, planting their crops by the phases of the moon. Even up until more recently, and I'm talking about my grandmother, who only cut her hair during the waxing moon in March of every year. So she cut her hair once a year, and it had to be during the waxing moon in March. And that was just what was always done. And Um, I haven't done it yet because this long hair situation with me is really, really recent. Those of you who know me in real life or have seen pictures of me like, years ago, this is like a totally new situation. So I'll be getting my hair trimmed um, next, this coming March 2020 during the waxing moon, just like my grandmother did. Just, because hair was personal power, or is personal power. But anyway, and it's tied to the moon. The moon, as the moon, you know, as the moon travels its orbit, it affects the tides of the oceans, right? Well, we are composed. Like, to put it simply, okay, I'm not to make this a boring science kind of thing. To put it poetically, we are composed of at least 60% seawater. Why are we surprised that the phases of the moon affects our emotions? That affects us, may even affect us physically, but certainly emotionally. Those of you who work with the public, okay, not just healthcare professionals, but anyone who works with the public knows it's not our imagination that people are freaking crazy on the full moon. If you work in healthcare, if you work in retail, all the craziness, when things are a little chaotic, there's always someone who's going to blurt out, "Is it the full moon? It must be the full moon." From my experience, I've witnessed chaos or chaotic behavior or very emotional behavior or very erratic behavior in the public, in the general public that I serve, during not really on the full moon, but leading up to the full moon, and let me tell you, the new moon. A dark moon and no one talks about it because you don't see the moon in the sky, and unless you're someone who follows the phases of the moon or has an app on their phone, you wouldn't even know that, oh my gosh, the moon is dark and these people are freaking out. Could you imagine? Think back to, let's say, your great great grandmother's time. I could think back, if I think back to my great grandmother's time, and how it must have been unsettling when the moon went dark. I'm talking about, people who did not have a knowledge of science, how unsettling it must have been when the moon went dark, and how reassuring it was once it began to wax again, and how wonderful it was when the moon was close to full, like in the third quarter, and then full, and then just right after the full moon when all the fields were illuminated by moonlight in the middle of the night, especially in winter. So, why moon? I could go on and on about why moon. I too am moon obsessed. But I'm never, ever going to be able to use a planner or an agenda. I don't think that's my moon obsession. I don't think that's my moon connection. My moon connection is to my ancestors, to something primal, to something old and ancient and beautiful, something that we could still tap into today. Thanks for tuning in. I will link to Natalia's video below. Please, if you're going to participate, leave a comment below. Use the hashtag I want to come find you. All right? Thank you, and have a beautiful day.